has never been a quiet city. Even in the mid-1600s, long before cars, streetlights, or paved boulevards, the city moved with a rhythm that felt larger than the people living in it. Emperors, popes, artists, and ordinary families had all left their mark on the urban landscape, weaving life among ruins that were already ancient. In this reconstruction, we step into Rome around 1650, using original paintings, engravings, and drawings by artists who captured the city as it truly appeared. Our journey begins at the Colosseum, half ruined yet alive with activity. Sections of the arena have collapsed, columns lay toppled across the ground, and nature is reclaiming parts of the structure. People move casually through the arches, children chase one another around the fallen stones, and merchants and horsemen thread through the ruins as if this ancient arena were just another neighborhood. On the edges, fragments of other Roman buildings hint at the density of the ancient city that once stood here. The Colosseum in 1650 was not a museum, it was a lived-in space, integrated into daily life. The shadows of antiquity blend seamlessly with the routines of ordinary Romans, reminding us that the city was as much about its living citizens as its historical monuments. St. Peter's Basilica. Moving across the city, St. Peter's Basilica dominates the skyline with a sense of awe and authority. Even freshly completed, its massive facade and soaring dome create a feeling of grandeur that overwhelms the viewer. At the center of the square, the obelisk anchors the space, while pilgrims, merchants, and soldiers crowd the piazza in dense, colorful clusters. Carriages line the steps, priests and travelers push through the crowds, and street vendors shout above the general hubbub. Nothing in this scene feels staged. It is Rome at full scale, alive with movement, ceremony, and the weight of faith. Even before Bernini's colonnades were added, St. Peter's Square already served as a stage where religion and daily life intersected. The Roman Forum. The Roman Forum in the 17th century looks different than the monumental space we imagine today. Here, ancient ruins coexist with pastoral calm. 3 standing columns of the Temple of Castor and Pollux rise above slow-moving figures, grazing cattle, and modest medieval buildings tucked casually beside grand stone remains. People wander through the ruins as if they are part of the neighborhood. Children play near the temples, and families pass by quietly with carts or baskets. The Forum in 1650 feels as much like a countryside clearing as the center of a great city. Life flows naturally around the vestiges of empire, illustrating a Rome where history is part of everyday existence rather than preserved behind walls. Carnival in the streets. During Carnival season, Rome becomes a living theater. Streets overflow with laughter, bright costumes, and music. Musicians march between carriages, jugglers and performers entertain crowds, and vendors compete for attention, shouting above the general noise. Families lean from windows and balconies to watch the spectacle, while children weave through the throngs below. For these few days each year, the city temporarily sheds its usual rhythm, embracing chaos and celebration. Every corner becomes a stage, and the energy of the populace transforms public spaces into arenas of joy, mischief, and pageantry. This is Rome at its most colorful, at its most human. Piazza Navona exemplifies this layering of life and history. Once the site of an ancient Roman stadium, the long oval square now hosts bustling markets, wandering travelers, and small children playing among vendors' stalls. In the golden light of late afternoon, the fountain of the 4 rivers glows, its sculptures capturing motion and emotion in stone. Visitors and locals alike move slowly across the piazza, weaving between fountains, carriages, and market tables. Every action is casual, as if the ancient stadium beneath their feet still whispers its history, but allows the present to continue unhindered. Even amidst crowds, the square retains a sense of order and purpose, a space designed for human interaction and daily commerce. Santa Maria in Vallicella. Along a quieter street, Santa Maria in Vallicella rises with its clean Baroque lines and tall columns framed by narrow buildings that press close along the street. Unlike the grand public squares, this corner feels private and solemn. Local residents pass the steps casually on their way to markets or workshops. The church is not a destination for tourists, but a familiar landmark integrated into the rhythms of daily life. It embodies how the sacred and mundane coexisted seamlessly. Faith was ever present, yet it did not overwhelm ordinary activity. The Colosseum revisited. Returning to the Colosseum, we see a warm, inhabited space where the ruins are part of the urban fabric. People gather at the base to talk, trade, or simply move through, while monks, soldiers, and families share the same paths. The Arch of Constantine stands quietly in the distance, shrouded in morning haze. This scene emphasizes a Rome where history is not removed, but actively woven into daily life. St. Peter's Square again. In St. Peter's Square, light falls across the open expanse, revealing a mix of riders, priests, merchants, and travelers moving in steady rhythms. The dome of St. Peter's rises like a second sky above the city, while the obelisk stands as a silent center point. The square is expansive, exposed, and full of life, even before the completion of Bernini's monumental colonnades. It is a space where ritual, travel, and commerce intersect naturally. The Tiber River. The Tiber River has a power all its own. In 17th century Rome, flooding was frequent. Engravings show water spilling past the banks, reaching streets and inundating low-lying areas. From the Ponte Sant'Angelo, we see boats struggling against the current while citizens gather to observe the rising water. Castel Sant'Angelo stands firm, its massive walls unwavering amid the chaotic surge. Despite the floods, life continues along the river's edges. Merchants unload cargo, travelers move cautiously, and residents adapt to the ebb and flow. The river shapes the city as much as architecture or policy, bringing both beauty and unpredictability to everyday life. The Roman Forum again. Another view of the Forum shows the contrast between old and new. The temple of Antoninus and Faustina stands tall and intact, while the crumbling remains of other structures create a patchwork of time. People move casually through the space, carriages pass along dusty paths, and medieval towers punctuate the skyline. Rome in the 1560s is a city where past and present coexist visibly, organically, and seamlessly. Gaspar van Vittel's Rome. In a sweeping engraving by Gaspar van Vittel, the city stretches along the Tiber with calm, silvery light. Castel Sant'Angelo rises to the right, its circular walls catching the afternoon glow. Boats glide along the river, while citizens pause at the edge to observe life and activity. In the distance, the dome of St. Peter's glows softly, dominating the skyline without overwhelming it. This view highlights Rome's balance: monumental architecture and ordinary streets, water and stone, past and present. Even centuries later, we can sense the careful human rhythm that structured life in this ancient city. A quieter Rome. From a more removed perspective, Castel Sant'Angelo and the surrounding area feel almost pastoral. Open spaces, soft foliage, and reflective water create a peaceful frame for the towering monument. Boats glide lazily along the river, while people walk dirt paths among fields. Beyond, St. Peter's Dome rises over the city, a glowing marker of faith. Here, Rome feels spacious and calm, a city still rooted in its countryside past, even as modernity slowly creeps in. Rome between past and present.
Rome in the mid-1600s is a city of contrasts. Ancient ruins stand beside Renaissance palaces, festivals fill the streets with color, yet quiet neighborhoods exist just around the corner. The Tiber brings life and danger. Every monument, piazza, and street has its story, blending history, daily life, and human energy. By walking these streets, we glimpse the rhythms of a city shaped by centuries of empire, devotion, and culture. Rome is crowded and calm, chaotic and orderly, sacred and mundane, all at once. Even today, the bones of this city endure. We can walk the same streets, gaze at the same skyline, and feel the echoes of life that shaped Rome hundreds of years ago. Conclusion. This reconstruction of Rome circa 1650 brings us close to the lived experience of its citizens. It shows a city where ancient and modern, sacred and everyday, spectacle and routine coexist. Rome is alive, restless, and endlessly fascinating, a place where history is not behind glass, but woven into the very streets where people live, work, and celebrate. Whether strolling along the Tiber, passing through St. Peter's Square, or pausing in the shadow of the Colosseum, we can feel the pulse of 16th century Rome, a city endlessly unfolding in time, still visible to us today.
If you enjoy seeing historical cities brought back to life through original maps and images, feel free to subscribe for more journeys into the past.